Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I am joined here as always by the guy who, I have to say, now that there's allegations of people getting money to throw games, him going 0 for 6 in the last 6 picks starts to make a lot more sense. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. I wish someone was offering me money to get these wrong because I'd be rich right now. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you'd be pulling in a lot of money.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. How you doing?
Well, I mean, we can't all be like me going 1 for 5,
Yes,
1 and 5.
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, it happens.
Kyle, crazy week.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's happened, I guess, right?
Yeah, I've like the Washington football team has a new name, and that's like, who cares?
Yeah. So how do we approach that next year? Are they still the Balls for us? I think they should still be the Balls, but I've been saying the Washington Football Commanders.
Washington, that's good.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we'll figure something out. I think.
What are they commanding exactly? The Titanic? I mean,
I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure if there's maybe someone in the chat knows. Is there some sort of history, like like the Cleveland Guardians? We were all like, what? But then once it's like, okay, there's actually a reason for it. Is there any reasoning, or is this just some bland name they thought of?
Well, I'm guessing it's just because there's military is based out of DC. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my thought about all this is all names are stupid. We're just used to 31 of them.
I guess. I don't know.
I mean, if the New York Giants came out with Giants, we would all say, like, oh, that's the dumbest thing ever. But now it's like, oh, no, that's an iconic name. Like the San Francisco 49ers, how much would we make fun of that if that came out today?
Yeah. Well, nobody knows what a Knickerbocker is. So, like, New York Knicks makes absolutely zero sense.
I didn't even know that's what it was short for.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so we'll learn something new. Fun fact right at the start of the show. All right, got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about Brady. We're going to talk about the Flores situation, and the rest of the show is going to be we're going to go off the main reason why all 30 teams that didn't make the Super Bowl, why they didn't make it, because we have 3 shows to kill before the Super Bowl. So this is kind of almost like an off-season-y type podcast, but then after this one, just to set up the schedule for future weeks, so you guys know, on Sunday we will be doing our draft of drafting who's going to win Super Bowl MVP. So that should be fun, previewing that stuff. And on Wednesday we'll have our full breakdown and preview of our final preview show of the Super Bowl. Going to spend an entire show just breaking down the game, so that should be fun as well. But you want to just get into this show now, Kyle?
Yeah, let's get right into it. Where do you want to start off?
Let's start off with the Flores thing, I think this is probably the story that I think is the most surprising. I don't really know what angle we want to take on this. I'll let, what are your thoughts on this? I made a video kind of breaking down the whole situation. If you're unaware of the situation, I recommend checking that one out. I think I explained it well on there. But Kyle, what do you think about this?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this lawsuit, and I mean, I read through a lot of those pages. I didn't read all of it. I read a good amount of it and then saw more of the stuff after the fact. I think what's so interesting about the lawsuit and what happened during it is that, we already kind of knew this was a problem. I mean, this is a problem that had been talked about the Rooney Rule's been around forever, and we've been talking about it as a problem in the league for probably as long as that. And, it's something that we've known as a problem and something that we've wanted to address and change, and something that the league, we think, wants to change. But that's another conversation altogether. But I think the thing that's crazy about it is that, so this kind of pulls the curtain back on a firsthand account of a black man trying to get a head coach job.
Right.
Like, it pulls the curtain back, and we say, okay, is it racist, or is it just that there's more white candidates than black candidates? Well, look at the situation that he's dealing with here. He feels like he goes to Denver, and he feels like he doesn't even have a shot before the interview even starts with Denver. He's going to Miami, and basically Miami in this situation is asking him to legitimately lose games, illegally tamper, and then basically they throw him under the bus after they decide to fire him because he doesn't follow those things, is his side of the story, is what he's saying in this lawsuit. And then, of course, there's the Giants situation where, he's going up there to interview. Bill Belichick has apparently been tipped off. They're ready to hire Brian Daboll. And Brian Flores is getting ready to interview for this job that it sounds like they've already named a head coach. So it's kind of it's kind of crazy that this all has kind of come out this way. And now obviously Hugh Jackson saying stuff too, when we're probably going to get more and more stories about, minority coaches trying to get head coaching jobs and the things that happen to them in the interviewing process that make it seem like, okay, I have no shot at this job just because they don't seem interested at all. And I wonder if that's going to begin to change things. I wonder if that's a real emphasis for change. Because look, I mean, these two leagues get compared all the time. The NBA has put a much bigger emphasis on hiring minority coaches, whether it's black, women, anything like that. They have put a huge emphasis on hiring minority coaches in the NBA. Now there's, I believe, 14 NBA head coaches. A lot were hired in these last couple hiring cycles. We're down to one black coach, one black coach in the NFL again, and then Ron Rivera as well for two minority coaches. And it's just
and Robert Saleh as well. But he's not black, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're back to basically three minority coaches, and who knows if we're going to have another one hired in this cycle. So it's crazy that this situation is happening. And I mean, if the NFL actually wants to put emphasis on it, then they have to show that they're willing to change. And right now, it doesn't seem like the NFL and the ownership groups want this to change.
Yeah, I think what you said I really agree with is the peel back on the curtain, and we knew this happened, right? Like we all knew that this probably was something that happened, and people probably did do interviews with black head coaches or black potential head coaches when they knew that wasn't ever going to happen. But I do think it was kind of different seeing it in writing and seeing it blatantly obvious that you weren't even giving this guy, you're not even giving him a 0.1% chance of the job. If you're only interviewing them because of the rule, like the least you could do is still give them the decency of a 0.1% chance of the job and not make the decision until after the interview. One thing that struck with me was, again, I don't know how deep we want to get into it. But one thing that struck me is like, well, why are you making their decision without Brian Flores? Why aren't you at least interviewing Flores, and giving it seriously? Like the guy has a great resume. Like why wouldn't I still don't understand why like a football team wouldn't just say like this guy almost made the playoffs with Tua in 2 separate years. Like we got to get this guy in the building somehow. Why are you not at least giving him a legit interview? Is kind of the surprise from my end. So it's disappointing. Again, we should mention these are all allegations. We don't know for sure, and the NFL has come out and denied all of it. So, more stuff will come out, but it's certainly, I think, frustrating that if this is true, that he has to go through this.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see the ramifications for it. I hope he's able to get a coaching job because, I mean, I think he is a good coach. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I do feel like this could be kind of this case can kind of be a big deal of what happens down the road. And, we'll see if this actually has a genuine change to hiring processes and hiring, is there going to be more clarity? Is there going to be more openness about the hiring process for NFL teams and what they're looking for and interview processes because I feel like that's the solution at this point is that they're more open and upfront about a lot of these situations, what they're looking for and what they end up hiring. And that's what, might be the best case scenario to come from this. We'll see what happens though.
Yeah. Here's one thing I thought, one more thing I want to say, because I feel like, again, we don't touch on serious issues too often, but when it comes up, when it's unavoidable, we'll talk about it. One thing that always gets me annoyed is I hear these people who will say, well, why would a team, owners want to make money, right? That's what owners care about is money. And why would you purposely not hire the better NFL head coach just when winning creates you more money? But the thing is, it's largely probably not like intentional. There's subconscious racism is a very real thing. And if you are, I don't think anyone is intentionally not hiring Brian Flores because he's black, but there could be a subconscious thing at play here that is resulting in black people not being able to get the opportunities that white people could.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, the league itself, the players in the league, the players who grow up playing football and retire from the sport. So you think that they're basically the smartest people on the planet when it comes to football because they've grown up in the sport. 70% of those players are black.
Mm-hmm.
And the percentages for coaches, general managers, front office people, and head coaches is much smaller than 70%.
In the past 10 years, 13% have been 13% of the new coaches have been black. And I should also mention 40% of college athletes, college football players are black, where almost every head coach played in college. Like the only one last year that didn't at some point play football in college was Vic Fangio. So it seems like there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the data for it speaks for itself. So it'll be interesting to see what happens because we talk about this with resumes and who's the best head coach. Because at the end of the day, like we aren't in those interview processes. So we don't know what's said and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, just looking at resumes, you got to say like, okay, obviously Leslie Frazier has a pretty extensive resume. Eric Bieniemy has an extensive resume. Byron Leftwich is a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator with a good resume. Todd Bowles has a pretty extensive resume for another opportunity. Aaron Glenn has a good resume, even though he's young for a coach.
Raheem Morris.
Yes. So it's just like you go through this list of all these guys and
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's plenty of guys with great resumes that would love an opportunity to be a head coach, and we'll see if they ever get that chance.
Yeah. Again, uncomfortable conversation, but kind of one that probably has to be said. And, I think, again, assuming that what Flores is saying is true, then it's good for him to bring it to light. And I'm hopeful, and maybe I'm delusional, but I'm hopeful this doesn't mean that he's never going to be a head coach in the NFL again, because he's a great coach. And, I've enjoyed his time in Miami. He's made the Dolphins fun to watch. And, I've criticized that team, but I've always maintained I thought Flores was holding it together.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I think he did a very good job with Miami, given the situation the last few years.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Why don't we? Unless you have anything else you wanted to add.
I think we just about covered it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about more fun stuff here, Kyle. People are saying Tom Brady doesn't care about the Patriots. Did not mention the New England Patriots when he's Kyle. Your thoughts on Brady clearly preferring Tampa Bay to New England?
Oh my gosh. He already said goodbye to New England when he left 2 years ago.
But didn't say it this time.
He literally said, had an extensive long goodbye, thanking everybody, all this stuff. So when I read this retirement post that he had online, a lot of it seemed like it was kind of like telling his teammates why he's deciding to do what he's doing kind of thing. It wasn't like this huge thing that he needed to blow up and, thank everybody who ever helped him in his career. It was kind of just, hey, teammates, I'm leaving. This is why I'm doing it. This is why we decided to move on. And, this is why I'm retiring. I don't think he actually feels that way about the Patriots, obviously, or Boston or anything like that. And quite honestly, I don't need a freaking goodbye to say I really appreciated Tom Brady winning a bunch of championships. So it was stupid. Everyone overreacting to it is stupid. That's what I say.
Why wouldn't he just say something? Why wouldn't he just say, oh, yeah, and thanks to the Patriots organization and their fans?
He did 20 minutes later, and everyone got mad, said he was trying to make up for not saying it.
Because that's what he was doing, right? I mean, clearly.
Oh, my God.
Some intern wrote that. Brady was probably probably fired his social manager intern who thanked the Patriots afterwards.
Some intern probably wrote the Instagram post retiring to begin with.
No, obviously I'm giving you a hard time. Is it possible he just forgot about it? It just didn't cross his mind. Well,
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's why wouldn't you? I don't think that this was his way of getting back at Patriots fans. I think that's the most absurd theory whatsoever. But I just don't get why you wouldn't just in this 7-page long thing, not at one point say oh yeah, and thanks New England.
I don't even think it was. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly just think, like I said, he was basically addressing his teammates and saying, "This is why I'm retiring. This is why I'm leaving you behind, and this is the best road for me." I don't think it was anything about he needed to make sure he addressed New England. I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. Of course, people ran with it. I didn't really care.
Dave Portnoy was very upset, Kyle.
Dave Portnoy doesn't speak for a New England Patriots fan. Is he a Patriots fan?
Yeah, he's a Boston guy.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, Dave, but I'm sorry, but I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly content crying into my 6 Super Bowls that Tom Brady's retired.
Yeah, I loved your tweet when like I think someone tagged both of us and like, what are your thoughts on this, Kyle? And you said, I don't need Tom Brady to thank me, and it's like it really is kind of a thing. Yeah, like what are we doing here?
Yeah. I don't need him to thank me. I saw a Boston Globe columnist said this is him sticking it to Patriots fans. And I'm like, why would he hate Patriots fans? Why would
Right.
he hate anybody?
Like I could understand like here's as far fetched as I could like conceive is possibly true. If he was really mad at like the Patriots for giving up on him, and so he just didn't mention it whatsoever. Like that doesn't mean he hates Patriots fans. Like the whole thing. And I don't even think if he was really mad at them, he would still just write it in his thing. I think it just for whatever reason they decided not to include it. And maybe he felt like he didn't want to do that to Buccaneers fans or maybe just his PR team felt like let's not do that to Buccaneers fans because we're leaving them. So let's not try to bring this up. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing I was thinking about this too. So like the summer before he hit free agency, there was the huge blow up about his contract extension and him not getting it. And that was kind of what led to eventually the following offseason, him leaving and him going to Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if the Patriots knew at that point when he was asking for that extension, he would be done basically 3 years after that, if they would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was just thinking, like, that's the interesting part to me. If they knew it was going to be 3 more years and then he's done, I wonder if they make the move and just say, okay, we'll give you the contract you want. We'll go all out with the offense the next couple off seasons, and we'll go and try and win 3 Super Bowls, or at least, another Super Bowl before you retire.
Yeah, well, I especially think if they knew he was going to play at the level he did, they would have held on to him. I mean, like no one knew
Yeah.
Brady was going to. I mean, what my optimist. I remember my video, which I believe is still like the main video on this channel. When you click the channel, like that's a suggested video, was why Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers makes them championship contenders. And that was just like he's a good enough quarterback that with the roster around him, like they could potentially compete for a Super Bowl. It wasn't like he's going to lead them to a Super Bowl and have an MVP caliber season at 44. So I think that's all it is. I think we should probably talk about the Buccaneers side of things. So my thought about the Brady side, obviously Brady retiring sucks because these last 2 years have been by far and away the most fun I've had watching football. So sucks to beat up in the post Brady days. I am a little bit thinking that I don't know. I just hope we don't go into the season with Kyle Trask. Kyle, I really do. That's my hope right here. Just give us someone other than Kyle Trask. I'll take a Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm okay with let's not do the Kyle Trask thing.
I don't think they will. There's just no way. There's no way.
Right.
I
think there's a way. I think there's a way. I think it's possible.
I think that's a 0% chance. I wouldn't even give it 1%. Honestly, I don't think there's any chance that they go in with Kyle Trask as their starter. Honestly, I'd see Blaine Gabbert starting before Kyle Trask.
I could see that.
So
Bruce Arians went 8-8 with Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I just don't see that happening. I think the one thing. So of all the rumored quarterbacks, I think Jimmy Garoppolo with Bruce Arians' system, I think would be a disaster. I don't think that would work. But at the same time, I do think there's some things. I think there's some guys out there that they can go get. They can go get Jameis and bring Jameis back. But yeah, I mean, we'll see about that. The crazy thing about this Brady thing, I mean, you basically got a 2-year loan out of him, end his career, and I mean, you got to say it was the right move, right? I mean, obviously, you won a Super Bowl. You had a chance this season. Pretty incredible that he was able to go there and, kind of change the fortunes of that franchise.
He was he's the best Buccaneers quarterback ever. In 2 years, he was I mean, you could argue he's the best Buccaneer ever. I actually think that's a very, because the role he played in these 2 years, I mean, who's better? I guess Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, those are the guys you could argue who are better. But in terms of overall impact, having 2 years of elite quarterback play in this passing era, he probably is the best. I think he's probably the best Buccaneer ever. Also, that's a toilet. I've heard this a lot, so I'm bringing it up, saying Bucs are going to be very bad now. I don't really agree with this take. I don't think they're going to be great. I think they're definitely, unless they find a way to get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, which I don't think is very likely. I think they're probably, I think they could go kind of like the Saints this year, be a mediocre team.
Well, I mean, this was a team that won 7 games when they turned the ball over 42 times.
True.
So, like, and that was a few years ago. I mean, I guess obviously the big question is going to be like, okay, so if Gronk retires and Godwin goes,
And
I
Carlton
think
Davis
that
also a free agent.
yeah, like if those guys start trickling out, I become a little concerned.
Sure.
But I don't think they're going to lose all of those guys. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting to see what they do. Like I said, I also think they get a quarterback. I don't think there's any chance they go with Gabbert or Trask this offseason. I think they're going to bring somebody in. So we'll see what happens with the Bucks. I think that they'll still be all right. It'll obviously they're not going to be Super Bowl contenders, favorites or anything next year. But depending on who they get, maybe they put themselves back in that conversation.
Yeah, and the the NFC South is looking weak, right? I mean,
Yeah.
are the Falcons the favorite to win the division now? I mean, this is a weird situation because the Saints losing Sean Payton, I think, hurts a lot. The Buccaneers obviously losing Brady hurts a lot. The Panthers are the Panthers, so like, I mean, it might be Atlanta that's there. I don't know. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That division changed in a minute, I guess, basically. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Sports are kind of weird, man. I gotta say that. I mean, sports are just weird. Like, I mean, it's just weird to think about this because I've been contemplating like what I want to say about this situation, this whole thing, and it's just like this guy has no idea who I am.
Right.
He's never gonna know who I am. He's not gonna care anything about me going forward, like for the rest of his life or my life. But it's like I think about it and I'm like, okay, if I rank the top 20 moments of my life, Brady's probably involved in 5 of them, at least. And it's like, I have vague recollections being born in 1995. I have vague recollections of like John Elway playing some football. I remember one Packers Broncos game, like very small, minuscule. I barely remember anything about it. I remember very little about football. The first game that I have real, genuine memories about is the snow game against Oakland in the playoffs. That was the first time I really remembered a football game, was watching that game in the snow, watching Brady lead that comeback. And just from there, it's basically been my whole life of football has been Tom Brady. So it's crazy to think of a world without him in the league. But I mean, we knew it was going to happen eventually, or we kind of planned it would. It's just crazy to see all of this and see we're going to see a league without him. It's going to be different.
Yeah, all of that, and he didn't even thank the Patriots fans in his speech. It's just tragic.
I'm heartbroken.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, listen, Brady was a legend. We're never going to see another one like Brady. Like, we're never going to see someone win 7 Super Bowls again. Like, it's never going to happen.
It would take a miracle, I think. I mean, it took a miracle for them to, get to that point so many times.
If Brady restarted his career, he wouldn't win 7. Like so much has to go right too, not just being the greatest, but also things have to go. It's just such an anomaly.
Yeah. So
we'll see. Some people in the chat also saying it was a fumble when you brought up the snow game. It was a fumble, but that's football. Sometimes you get the breaks.
I'm not worried.
All right, ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So good stuff. We now have, I think this will be a fun exercise, going through all the teams, explaining, the main reason why they did not make the Super Bowl. I'll get started. I'm going to do just so you guys know how this works. I'm going to do the NFC. I'm going to go through all these. Kyle will then do the AFC, and then that'll be the rest of the teams. Obviously, we're doing 30 because 2 teams are in the Super Bowl. So I'm just going to go, start off with the NFC East. And I'm going to start off with let's go with the Dallas Cowboys to start things off. And my reason that I have is this one was kind of a weird one. I wrote defense kind of, right? Because it's not like the defense was bad. In fact, in areas it was very good. But I think that, the run defense wasn't great. 27th in PFF grades and 11th in yards per carry given up. And they also gave up explosives in the secondary. So it's not so much that the defense was horrible, because it still got plenty of turnovers. The pass rush was very good. But I felt like there was too many issues there, and it kind of ran into a bad matchup in San Francisco. So that's why I have the Dallas Cowboys.
I think that's fair. I think, if this team gets maybe 1 or 2 guys in the draft, that they like hit on, like a defensive tackle, basically,
Mhm.
maybe address it with the free agency too, and add like a guy in the secondary as well. I think this is probably going to be the Super Bowl, odds on Super Bowl favorite next season, right? Or at least in that conversation. So I think I agree with that. I think there were some mistakes. I mean, the low hanging fruit for this one was Mike McCarthy, but you didn't pick Mike McCarthy. So um, you felt like that the defense added more to that?
I don't think Mike McCarthy was that like horrible. I mean, Mike McCarthy's not great. Like the time management stuff isn't great. Okay, I get that he gets a lot of criticism for the quarterback draw, but at the same time, like it was so they could get a better Hail Mary anyway. So it was a tough spot there. And I don't really. I think I put less stock into coaching as the average football fan does. I do have a team where I put coaching on here, but you could have said coaching. They definitely were something I thought of, but I decided the issues in the defense that were exposed in San Francisco were a bigger thing. Also, super chat, John, thank you, $20 super chat, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you think Tom Brady will coach, or will he do commentary on TV or anything like that? It's a good question. I can't see coaching, because if he's trying to get time, why would he coach? But I could see him doing some sort of commentary thing, or like, podcasting, maybe YouTubing. I don't know. I could see him doing something like that.
YouTuber Tom Brady.
Uh-huh. I like that.
Yeah, I don't really see him doing either of those things. Like, I think he's just going to basically manage his businesses and kind of be like a personality who might
Mhm.
jump on like a Manning cast or something like that. I don't see him like wanting to do the grind of coaching or the travel of commentary. So
I
I
love
think
this. In
what's
the
that?
chat, Zachary Stewart, Brady could host Jeopardy. That would be incredible.
If he beats Rodgers in that too, Rodgers should just give up everything.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. All right, we can move off to the Cowboys. Let's go to the Eagles. My Eagles pick. Well, they were kind of a tough one too, because they have a pretty complete roster. But I put receivers other than Devonta Smith, and they have like Quez Watkins did some nice things, but they really lacked the receiver depth. I felt like in that Tampa Bay game, and that kind of that was probably their biggest issue. I think.
Uh, yeah, I think so. I guess you could have said secondary too. But I do think the receivers make a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, if you're going to roll with a young quarterback, you kind of need that talent. And I think that definitely hurt them.
Yeah, and I think another thing with them is sort of maybe lack of high-end talent. They had the great offensive line. They had, like Darius Slay, but like they could have used maybe another star or two, which they had the draft capital to do it. So maybe that's good news for the future.
Yeah, I completely. I mean, this team's heading in the right direction. I was
Mm-hmm.
impressed with them this season. We kind of knew this would be this team was universally picked to finish them on the bottom of the teams in the league. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be, building something the right way.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so now plowing through the NFC, Kyle, the Commanders, the Washington Commies. By the way, like, how did they not think about the fact that it's obviously going to be shorted to Commies?
I mean, did you expect Dan Snyder to do critical thinking?
I mean, I can't imagine Dan Snyder is doing this, right? Or he probably is. He probably hired this team to do it for 2 years and then threw out everything they did and said going with the Commanders.
Do you think he actually paid for a team? Like, I don't think he actually paid for a team. I think he
What do you
hired
mean?
like one guy to like listen to his ideas.
That's probably it.
Yeah, or for him it was probably like hired an 18-year-old female to listen to his ideas.
All right, let's. Okay, I like this. Let's go with this one. Comrade Snyder. Yes, exactly. For the commies, I wrote coverage regression. I think that's the biggest one. This coverage unit was supposed to be the strength of this team and ended up being the weakness. And that was, you could also point to the lack of quarterback play, but they didn't really have that last year either. I think the biggest thing was the regression in their coverage unit.
I agree. I mean, it got better by the end of the season. But then it got hurt and then it kind of dropped off again. And you're right. I mean, I think people, when they picked this team to win the division, were saying that it's going to be an elite defense. And when they weren't covering, there was just no chance.
Mm-hmm. Zachary Stewart in the chat says, please, guys, I'm a Commanders fan. Everyone is making fun of our name already. Stadium team owner. I'm sad enough. Well, if you had Tom Brady, he would have motivated your owner to be better and not have those issues, right, Kyle?
I mean, you've lived with Dan Snyder your whole life. I mean, like, you've willingly chose to endorse a Dan Snyder team. That's your fault.
Yeah. Okay. This comment. Commander sucks with like 100 laughing, crying emojis. So, all right. Chat is having fun here. But yeah. Did you say anything about? Did you have anything to say about the Washington football team?
I already did. I made fun of Dan
Mm.
Snyder. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team. I don't know what this team is next year, right? Like,
They're in a weird spot. They're one of
yeah,
the 14 teams that needs a quarterback.
yeah, and there's not enough good quarterbacks to pass around, so we'll see.
Right. Yeah. This should be interesting. All right. Let's go on. Finish out the NFC East with the Giants. I wrote wide receivers didn't work out. To me, this was the biggest issue I thought with
Mhm.
the Giants. And it ended up being a weakness of this team, but they put a lot of resources into it. And you could also argue the offensive line. I think those kind of both were the things where it's like, I guess with the Giants, like it's not for lack of trying. Like you can't sit here and blame the mentality. You really just have to blame and even like Kadarius Toney, obviously, I was a big fan of. I think that most people liked some of the free agent signings they got, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I completely agree with this one again. I think that makes perfect sense. I even think like guys like Andrew Thomas, I thought played better this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be real growth in the offensive line. But yeah, I mean, when you spend that amount of money on pass catchers and none of them turn out really good, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of an issue when you have Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney who have less touchdowns than Andrew Thomas. Usually not less receiving touchdowns than Andrew Thomas. That might not be the best.
Yeah, that is not a recipe for success.
No, not so much. But the nice spot is you have Daniel Jones for next year.
Good luck.
All right. Okay. Well, there. That's the NFC East. Kind of blew by that one. Let's go to the NFC West here. So there's no Rams. I accidentally put it in here, but we don't need to do the Rams because they are in the Super Bowl. We'll go to the Cardinals. I wrote coverage regression throughout the season and receiver depth. I know that's two things kind of cheating, but those are the biggest things I thought were once Hopkins went down, the receiver core really struggled. Granted, hard to replace a guy like Hopkins, but still. And then I thought their coverage just continued to. They got kind of lucky with some of these moves that I didn't think were going to work out. That did work out early on, but then they weren't working out later in the season, and that kind of ended up tanking them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting parallel to the team that they played in the playoffs, the Rams, in the team that, the Rams didn't lose their best receiver, but they did lose Robert Woods. And I mean, they were fine.
Right.
They were fine. I mean, Odell Beckham, you could argue they did even better at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at like a team like the Buccaneers lost Godwin, and they still turned out okay. This team completely collapsed without DeAndre Hopkins. And I get DeAndre Hopkins as one of the, 5 or 6 best receivers in football.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have to have other guys who can make impact plays, and they didn't have that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, I think it's easier said than being worse because you don't have DeAndre Hopkins is understandable. But the drop off that happened, I think, is where the issues come up to. It kind of shows how much Hopkins maybe disguises some of the holes in that team.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And then as far as the coverage goes, it's just like it was weird how this kind of just fell off. I'm curious, like watching this team, do you think that teams just kind of figured them out, or did the guys just kind of regress back to the mean talent level? Because I mean, we were talking about how Byron Murphy's playing like one of the best corners in football to start the season. I still think he had a decent year, but it wasn't anything compared to what he started with. He was just okay by the end of the year. What happened in that group?
Yeah, I mean, some injuries, of course, but like at the same time, it's like, okay, so what? You only get 500 snaps out of Robert Alford, but at the same time, it's like, how much were you expecting from Robert Alford? So, kind of it was. I think they just one of the things they need to do is just put a bigger emphasis on, Marco Wilson was a 5th round pick, and he ended up being like a starting corner for you. Like you need to put more emphasis on the cornerback position. I think that's what they need to do this season.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, let's go to the Niners, the team that came to closest out of any of these to getting to the Super Bowl. And what I wrote is they didn't upgrade at quarterback. And Kyle, here's the thought I had. I almost put this there is they didn't draft Mac Jones.
Yeah, they did not draft Mac Jones. I do think that Mac Jones could have helped a little bit more. I don't know if he gets them a win over the Rams, but I mean, based on the way Jimmy G played by the end of in the playoffs, he probably could have helped. It'll be interesting. This is an interesting time for the Niners. We're going to see how this pans out. We're going to see where this Trey Lance thing goes, but it's still kind of a wild card at this point.
Yeah. And, an element of this too is like, it was kind of intentional, right? I mean, this wasn't, they made an intentional move to not go for it all this year, basically, and to say we're going to in part build for the future. But like, you could talk about, hey, Matt Stafford went for 2 first-round picks. Like, they could have done a similar thing with the Jimmy Garoppolo and a couple of first-round picks for Matt Stafford. If they do that, like, they're probably in the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys they could have went after, and they didn't. They went down with this scenario, and they knew that this was a move for the future, but it doesn't help them in the present.
Yeah, but exactly. And the flip side is, if Trey Lance hits, then they're all going to be popping champagne, probably hoisting a Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how he does.
Because, I mean, again, a good quarterback in that system would be fantastic. So, I get it. I'm not necessarily saying I hate the move. It's probably not what I would have done, but I get the logic behind it. I'm just saying that's the goal of this podcast is why these teams didn't win the Super Bowl. That's why they didn't win the Super Bowl. The Seahawks, I wrote, they're still trying to win Super Bowl 48. That's what I have in my notes.
I completely agree. I've done a lot of Seahawks hate this season. I feel like I don't need to do too much more, but I think everyone understands my point with the Seahawks, that this team's still kind of archaic. I think this team needs a fresh blood. They're going to roll it back with the same thing over and over again, and I just don't know if it's going to work again. So we'll see what happens with the Seahawks going forward. But yeah, I mean, this team is aging itself out of football quickly with the way they play.
Yeah, just kind of a weird thing. It's like, listen, like, you can make some of what you're doing work, but it feels less like they're trying to, they think this is the best option for their team, and more like, well, this is what we had success with, so we're going to continue running this Seattle cover 3, which, like, okay, certain teams, I can see why you would want to do that if you have this specific talent. They don't have that specific talent, and they're still trying to make it work. So, yeah, I don't know. And of course, the offense is relatively bland as well. Also, could use a third option in receiving. I think that also factors in. But yeah, that's where I had the Seahawks.
Yeah, we'll see if they can add a few guys in that secondary, maybe get a third pass catching option. And I mean, we'll see if this Rashad Penny thing's real too. I was making jokes about it by the end of the season.
Sure.
But honestly, if this is a real guy all of a sudden, and you're adding, this level of a running back to this offense, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Moving on from Seattle, the team that they beat in the 2014 NFC Championship game, the Green Bay Packers. I wrote here, Jordan Love / lack of second receiver. I think that this is the Jordan Love thing. I still feel like if they had T. Higgins here, who was the next wide receiver drafted, I think the Packers probably, there's a very real chance the Packers are currently, now we're talking about them trying to repeat as champions heading into their second straight Super Bowl.
Yep. Well, so the interesting thing is, like, I think I've been on here defending Allen Lazard. I think Allen Lazard is a pretty good number 2 option. I think that they have some pieces in their pass catching group, but it may not matter the talent level if Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust him. Because it just seemed like at the end of that 49ers game, he was throwing to one guy, he was looking at one guy, and he trusted one guy with the ball in his hands. That was Devontae Adams. And that's usually a good strategy to put the ball in Devontae Adams' hands. But at the same time, like, if you don't trust your second and third options, you're making it pretty easy on a defense.
Yeah, well, but isn't that kind of a part? Like, I think Allen Lazard has talent and he has value in the NFL. But like, this guy was what an undrafted free agent that mostly is in there for blocking in a lot of ways. It kind of, you're like, I like Allen Lazard for what he is, but they need a guy who can just consistently beat up on a number 2 corner, and they didn't have that for these past couple of years. And it exposed them in that Tampa Bay game, and it really hurt them in the San Francisco game.
Yeah. No, I agree. It'll be interesting to see because, there's a lot of questions about Rodgers, but if he decides to come back, is that the first priority in the draft? You basically have the team you're ready to roll with for a Super Bowl. Do you add one more piece of that outside?
It'd be so funny if Rodgers comes back, they draft another quarterback in the first round. That would just be the best.
Kenny Pickett and Jordan Love split backup duties.
Exactly. All right. The Vikings, I wrote coaching. This is the one team I have for coaching. I think the coaching massively held this team back. Kirk Cousins had a really good year. Like, people keep, like, I feel like it's the kind of thing where people keep making fun of certain, like I see people make fun of PFF for how high they were in Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins was good. Like I watched every snap from Kirk Cousins because I was studying it. Like, is Kirk Cousins really that good? Like, no, Kirk Cousins was good this year. They have a good receiving core, but it doesn't matter too much when you're running the ball 30 times a game. So, there was some other issues. Even the defense, I thought, was not Zimmer's best work we've seen from him. So I put coaching here.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I don't know. Like, yeah, it was weird. I mean, I thought Cousins did have a good year. Regressed a little at the end of the season, but at the same time, they're basically out of it by that point. But yeah, I mean, he was terrific this season. I frustratingly watched every one of these games too. And I mean, the guy made some really good throws, and having Justin Jefferson in this offense is huge. Speaking of drafting receivers in the first round, this is it'll be interesting to see who is named the head coach and what happens here, because I think this could be a good team pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it's, according to Ian Rappaport, the Vikings are targeting the Rams offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, but it's not official yet, and it can't be official until after the Super Bowl. So we'll see. But, that would be an interesting move. So we'll see how that goes. And who knows, maybe Kirk Cousins won't be there. So a lot of stuff there. Let's go to the Bears now. For the Bears, I went ignoring the outside. I talk about a lot. Games are won on the outside. They finished 26th in receivers, 23rd in coverage. And like for the corners, it seemed like they legitimately just didn't even try to get corners. Like they weren't even like they had late round picks, and they were still like, let's build up our offensive line depth. It was like, what are we doing here? Like, you guys not realize you have no one in that room, and it wasn't even a complete mess, but it certainly wasn't good. So they need to work on that outside stuff, especially if they want to help develop their young quarterback, Justin Fields.
Well, and they just thought some of those guys on the outside will work out too. Eddie Jackson has not been the same guy. Allen Robinson didn't look like the same guy this year. You could argue Darnell Mooney was the right play, but we'll see what happens with this team. Obviously, I mean, they need talent around Fields too. If you're going to roll with this kind of receiving core around a young quarterback, you're not setting him up for success, and it's going to be tough to be good in this league without good receivers.
Yeah, and you do have a bit of a foundation there, so that's the nice thing. That we talk about how they're not as far away as some of these other teams, but they still have some work to do. So that's why I have them there. Also, the Lions, going over to them, I wrote they intentionally didn't try to win the Super Bowl this year, because this was a rebuilding year for them. You can't really put one thing down, because this was a roster nowhere close, and they knew it.
Yeah, I mean, didn't I say they needed 18 new starters for next season because they want to be pretty good? I mean, I still kind of feel that way. I mean, they're way off. They got a few nice pieces. They showed some things. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like maybe the steal of the draft. So, having him, having Swift, having Hawkinson, having a pretty decent offensive line when it's healthy, I mean, those are pieces you can build on, but you got a long way to go to, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, but at least the nice thing is, Dan Campbell seems to be doing good stuff there. The greatest coach of all time, Dan Campbell, was there.
Future U.S. president.
Yes, future U.S. president, Dan Campbell. Let's move on. Final division here in the NFC. So let's do my team, the Buccaneers. I wrote lack of receiver depth. And really, it's kind of lack of getting these receivers who seemingly have talent to be able to perform. Because, it's something we thought was a strength coming into this year with the, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. But Antonio Brown was kind of a ticking time bomb. Him exploding and walking off the field is not something outside of the realm of possibilities that we knew was going to happen going into the year. Injuries do happen. Chris Godwin went down, and guys like Tyler Johnson, who was someone we thought was going to be a pretty solid piece, couldn't stop dropping footballs. Scotty Miller was supposed to be a key piece, at least a good role player, if nothing else. He wasn't really able to turn into that stuff. So to me, that ended up being the biggest issue for them.
You could also say it was just kind of bad luck. Yes, you could say Brown was a ticking time bomb, but it was also Brown with the combination of Godwin getting hurt basically around the same time. Gronk not really staying healthy this season. And then the Tyler Johnson thing was just weird. The guy developed brick hands overnight, it seemed like. I didn't understand what happened there. Brady clearly lost trust with him. And even guys like Scotty Miller, who had good things last year, and everyone was saying that, is a really good piece to that team last season, didn't really have a lot of impact this season.
Yeah, I think you could even point to like my brother brought this up, and it's a great point of like the Kyle Trask pick. It's like, what was the point of that? Like, why didn't we just throw on some depth, if nothing else? And obviously, if we got another receiver, that would have been great. That's definitely hindsight because we had guys we thought were good. But like, get another offensive lineman, like do something. It felt weird that we kind of just wasted that pick for a guy who we knew wasn't going to play this year.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, regardless of how you feel about him, you never know if you don't know if he's ever going to play. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
it is a interesting pick. It was an interesting situation, but we've said that about a few teams. It's like, why draft that guy? Why waste a pick on a quarterback you know is not going to play? San Francisco, but yeah, I mean, so like if speaking of St. Brown, if that's Amon-Ra St. Brown, are the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl?
Right. They at least would have had a better shot. I mean, again, a lot of stuff went wrong against the Rams, so it's hard to say, we'll change one thing, who knows? But that's probably the biggest issue there. For the New Orleans Saints, I wrote just ignored the passing game. They didn't really go after receivers. Even, Jameis Winston, who did some nice things for them, that was kind of just like a flyer pick. Like, it's not like we knew Jameis Winston was going to be great. One day decided to have him be the starter. And, the Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston tandem did not go as you maybe would have hoped. Again, if Winston stays healthy, things might change. I purposely didn't want to put injuries for any of these because I felt like I didn't want to do that. But that's probably their biggest area of failure, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, when Kevin James is your head coach, obviously it's tough to
Right.
succeed. I mean, no.
Mm-hmm.
Listen,
Yeah.
I think it seemed like it was just too much trust in it was almost kind of too much trust in what's worked in the past. Like if you looked at those last couple Brady seasons with the Patriots, it was like too much trust in that we're going to patch together receivers and Brady's going to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what worked in 2008 with Rashay Caldwell, rest in peace.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We're just going to make it work that year. It seemed like this was the Saints saying, okay, we keep finding these receivers, going back to Marcus Colston, basically. And we're going to just say, you know what, Callaway's going to work. Dwayne Harris going to work. I thought Harris actually had a pretty nice year too. So,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, I think they was just saying that these guys are going to work and Sean Payton's going to figure this out. But at the end of the day, like, coaches are important, coaches are good, but they're not on the field making plays. So Sean Payton can scheme what he wants, but if those receivers can't get open, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and listen, you could argue the Michael Thomas thing, was the
Yeah.
biggest factor. I'd probably say the biggest reason the biggest issue with them was just that, they had so many injuries. But like, I think this is a good comment of it hurt my soul to watch Kevin White running routes. Yeah, that's pretty. Like when Kevin White is like a starting receiver for you that you're expecting to be like a decent player, like maybe you went wrong in certain areas.
If you had a choice to start a franchise, would you take Laquan Treadwell or Kevin White?
Give me Laquan Treadwell, right? The Jags' number one option.
I think I agree.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. I wrote entire defense except for AJ Terrell and Grady Jarrett.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you could also add the offensive line. It kind of seems like it's a transition year with a new head coach. But yeah, I think that defense was horrible at times, just horrible.
Yeah, it had some issues. Yeah, offensive line is inconsistent. I thought it had its moments, but yeah, the inconsistencies there. They need a guard. That's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And then let's finish up the last one on this list. The Carolina Panthers. I wrote Sam Darnold. I think this is the easy choice. They decided that they went all in on Sam Darnold. They could have drafted Mac Jones. They could have drafted Justin Fields. They instead drafted a corner, J.C. Horn, who did look good before getting injured. So maybe you have that. But they're one of the many teams desperately needing a quarterback. This Sam Darnold's still on your team. Maybe it'll work out. But I feel like that's the biggest issue for them.
Yeah, and it might lose your head coach's job too. So we'll see what happens with that pick, with their pick going forward, how they address this position. But you can't go 20 cents on the dollar for a quarterback.
Yeah, it did cost Joe Brady his job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where did I see he got hired? The Giants?
He got hired somewhere. I forget. I can
Buffalo?
look that up. But yeah.
Might have been Buffalo.
You could. I don't know. Potentially, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up while you go. Which one? Where are you starting?
Would you start with the East? We could start with the East.
Okay.
So with the East, I'll start with the Buffalo Bills. Won the division. I wrote Patrick Mahomes. like I was gonna
That's fair.
say, I was thinking about writing wide receivers, and I think this was the thing. Basically, secondary wide receiver options beyond Stephon Diggs. But at the same time, your third wide receiver had 4 touchdowns in the AFC divisional playoff game. I think that's something that still needs to be addressed in the offseason. But as far as not winning the Super Bowl this year, it came down to Patrick Mahomes having 13 seconds and you playing soft coverage in those 13 seconds and he being able to go down the field and score. And he was able to do that. So I put Patrick Mahomes, but I do think that they need to add some more secondary receivers too.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, couldn't you argue like the decision making they made in the last 13 seconds could be the reason?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could definitely argue that. I think there's a couple games you can look at with the Bills where it's like basically decision making in those big games, whether it's, the Buccaneers game in that first half, the Patriots game in the win, or that Chiefs game. There's bad decisions made by the coaching staff. I still think this is a good coaching staff, but they made some bad decisions in this one.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. What's the next one?
All right, we'll go with the Patriots here. This one I said just explosive play guys. Basically, I mean this team. There was progress made this year, and I thought they did a good job investing in this offense. But you invested in a bunch of tier 2 and tier 3 options. You need to go get real tier 1 options at wide receiver. Wide receivers win Super Bowls. You've addressed this. This is your shtick. You probably agree with me.
Yep.
And if it means, hey, let's go pay Chris Godwin and draft Chris Olave. We'll have the Chris and Chris combo as their tier 1 guys. Kendrick Bourne's an excellent number 3 receiver. Jacoby Myers is also there too. That's what you need to do going forward. But you need to be more explosive on the outside. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. You're going to need that to win in this league.
Yeah, I think that's good stuff. Is there anything else about the giving up a touchdown on literally every single drive in the playoffs, or was that just kind of one of those weird games?
I mean, it was a weird game. I do think there's things that need to be addressed on the defense. The linebackers need to be faster. Maybe it's time to let some of these older guys go and try and bring in a new group. But I think that it's I think that overall over the scheme of things, the pass catchers need to be better, a higher level of talent.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. How about How about the Dolphins? You want to go here? And I know that the owner would probably say Brian Flores.
Yeah. My answer was not Brian Flores. I just put offensive output. Basically, it just wasn't good enough for this team. And I mean, it kind of goes to talent across the board. The offensive line's not talented enough. You don't really have the players at running back to make a difference. The one part you could say is the strength of this team is pass catchers because Jalen Waddle looks like a real number 1 option. And he was terrific this season as a rookie. Devontae Parker is a pretty good number 2 option. And then Mike Gesicki is a good pass catching tight end too. So you have those 3 pieces. That's a good spot. That's where you build your offense on. And then the questions begin at quarterback and what you do there going forward. But yeah, I do think the offensive output needs to be better for this team to compete with Buffalo. I mean, this team's not going to beat Buffalo with this offense, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and listen, the Tua jokes are going to come. We've made plenty of Tua jokes, but the real reason is I want to see Tua. There's still stuff I like from Tua. Like I still saw some good things from Tua. I want to see him with an offensive line that can give him some time to actually throw.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He still sells some balls that I don't like. There's some things obviously, but yeah, it'll be interesting. They're gonna give him the chance. He's gonna get those 5 years to prove it. That he needs to develop, but he also needs talent to help.
Yeah. So John Doe in the chat says Tua bad, but then we have another chatter saying Tua fish. So mixed reviews in the chat.
When he throws, the ball kind of looks like a tuna with the way it flops. I guess that's something.
Yeah. Okay. I never heard that before, but yeah. The Tua to the Bucks for Trask plus some picks. Tua to the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe is that. No, I think BUCS is the. I would take that. Sure, I'll take Tua over Trask.
I mean, you're getting a guy who's probably not going to go play an NFL snap. Yeah, that's a good trade.
Yeah. All right. Finishing it up, the New York Jets. Probably about a dozen things you can go with, but where are you going?
I just went talent. I mean, this team. This is a rebuild. Listen, I mean, the secondary needs help. I still think the defensive line and linebackers are pretty good for this team, but you need help in the secondary. You need a lot of receivers. You need the offensive line's decent. You have some pieces going forward, but this is a young channel, and it needs to add more talent to its team to be competitive. It's going in the right direction, though.
Is it a young channel?
I said a young. Did I?
Yeah, I think you read. I think there was a comment that said, "I really love this channel," and my
Oh.
my prediction is that you read that and said channel instead of team.
I might have done it subconsciously, I guess. Yeah, weird. This is a young team. It's going in the right direction.
Okay, unless I'm just like mishearing and I'm going crazy. Chat, let us
No,
know.
I could have said that. Yeah. Oops.
All right. Yeah, I think that's fair. At least to have future god Zach Wilson for the quarterback.
That's true. He showed some good stuff at the end of the year.
Yeah. All right. Okay, where are we going next, Kyle?
Let's go north.
Yeah. Also, chat saying yes, he did say that. Just to clear that up.
Whoops, my bad.
It's okay.
Listen,
Young Channel is actually my YouTube rapper name. Young Channel.
You get a lot of hits, a lot of subs.
Can't imagine so. No, I don't think that would go over too well.
Okay, so let's go to the north now. No Bengals, obviously they're in the Super Bowl. Shout out Bengals. Let's go with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only team to make the playoffs from this team besides Cincinnati.
That's just crazy too. That alone, yeah. I can't believe that's a real sentence.
I know. How disgusting. I said there's 3 big options here.
Okay, just go with them all.
Yeah, I said secondary, offensive line, quarterback. Obviously, the quarterback was a bridge year. You knew this was going to be Ben's last year. It did not go well. It did not help you win games. That'll be addressed this offseason. The secondary needs a lot of help. This secondary needs a lot of help going forward. I think that there isn't a lot of talent. Minka Fitzpatrick hasn't been quite the same player since he got there. And then the offensive line obviously needs to get better too for whoever the new quarterback is.
Yeah. So basically like half of the roster.
Yes.
But the other half is like solid.
Yeah. I mean, the other half is a Super Bowl winning roster, but there's still like 22 players that play and 11 of them are bad.
Yeah. I think I might be lower on the receiving core as well. I think a lot of it was just like, hey, Chase Claypool, go up and make a catch.
Yeah. I mean, but
I use some separators, I think.
If you have, Johnson, Claypool, and Freiermuth for the next few years, I mean, that's a pretty good group. Plus, Harris, I think, is going to be really good.
Yeah, I think so. I think they can maybe use a true number 1 guy. I like other players, but I think maybe could use someone who's, at top level. But yeah, a lot of issues with the Steelers. Let's move on.
Let's go to Ravens. Ravens, I said injuries. Just kind of the bad luck here. I mean, you could probably go to a few different things, but I really think like if this team's healthy for the season, they have a shot. And we just don't know if they would have made it. I mean, I don't know if they would have, made the Super Bowl with the team they had, but you'll never get the chance to know because everybody was hurt. You could also say this is another team that needs to add help at wide receiver, but I think that this is also a team that's never going to address the position like it needs to be, I think. Just the way the offense is constructed, and I think that the lack of health hurt. So yeah,
I agree. I mean, I think this is the one team where saying injuries isn't just a cop out. I think this was legitimately a very real thing, and then it's like when Lamar Jackson is down for a decent amount as well. Like, what are you going to do here? I thought they did some things to address the receiving core. Sammy Watkins, again, didn't play all year. That's classic Sammy Watkins. Like the Rashad Bateman pick, I like. So like they're at least trying now. Where in the past it seemed like they just completely ignored it altogether. So I agree. I think if you have to pick a non-injury thing, the receivers is probably where I would go.
Yeah. Yeah. So ready to move on?
Yeah. Also, Nate in the chat, very angry at us for only talking about the Bills for 1 minute and 10 seconds.
So you want to talk about why the Bills lost a little bit more?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's about how long we're spending like 2 minutes on each of them.
Yeah, we're not spending a whole lot of time on all these. We're kind of just breezing through. This is supposed to be fun, people. Hashtag fun show.
Yeah, hashtag fun show. Well, why are the Browns not playing for Lombardi Trophy on a week from Sunday, Kyle?
Their quarterback play wasn't good enough. You can blame a torn labrum. You can blame whatever you want. The Baker Mayfield regressed this season. This is a roster that's ready to win, and they thought they were going to get decent enough quarterback play to win. and they didn't get it. So, yeah, I think that the Browns not making the Super Bowl has to do with not being good enough at quarterback.
Yeah, well, there is a Browns player who started the year with the Browns and has now made the Super Bowl.
That adds to it too. But
Mhm.
a better quarterback makes him happy at wide receiver, and throws him the football correctly. So
Mhm.
this goes back to what we were saying though during the season. It's like there was one game I still remember this game vividly that Odell Beckham had 2 catches for 28 yards, and he was open about 10 more times and didn't get the ball.
Right.
So it's just
Mhm.
like if it's better quarterback play, they're probably in this spot right now where they're playing for a Super Bowl. This roster is loaded outside of that spot. So we'll see how they address that.
Yeah. Scotty says, I think Case Keenum would have gotten the Browns to the playoffs. I think they would have been better off with Case Keenum in certain games. I'll certainly say that much. Like, again, I think part of it was, I do think it was at least in part due to Baker not being 100%. One other thing I'll throw on there, again, receivers didn't play what we wanted them to be. Jarvis Landry did not have a great year. I think that's fair to say. Like he did not play like how we expected him to be, and the Odell thing just didn't work out. So we thought this might be a tier 1 receiving core. This was like a tier 4 receiving core.
Yeah. Especially without Odell. And, maybe they get another pass catcher. So let's play hypotheticals here. Because you were high on this team. I mean, I think everybody was high on this team, and I still think this team's going to be good. But just
Hmm.
hypothetically, if this team added Rodgers and Adams, would you pick them to win the Super Bowl next year? Just off the top of your head.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're good. Like again, yes, if this really good roster added an elite, probably the best quarterback and best wide receiver in football, yeah, I'd probably pick them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think I agree. Um,
Mhm.
so, all right.
So there you go. Make that happen, Cleveland.
Yeah, do it. Just trade for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, not that hard. Okay, let's move on. 2 divisions left. Where are we going?
All right, let's go to the West. Going West, like the manifest destiny. Starting with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a little history tidbit for anybody. Kansas City Chiefs. I picked complacency because there's no rhyme or reason for this team only scoring 6 points in 2 second halves against the Cincinnati Bengals, other than that it felt like that they just took their foot off the gas. So I think that's a huge problem. As far as on the roster situations, why the roster wasn't good enough, secondary receiver options. They never had an option to replace Sammy Watkins. And without a guy there, it makes it, it's not easy to defend Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, but it makes it slightly easier to defend that duo when there's not a real guy that's the third option that you're afraid of.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just kind of weird how like they got so exposed in that Super Bowl and then did like nothing to fix it. Like it seemed like so obvious, like, okay, we got to figure this thing out in a hurry. And they just like, it's a year later and they still haven't really figured it out.
Well, they thought the issue was the offensive line, and they did a really good
Yeah.
job addressing that. And like, I do think that the offensive line being hurt and being bad was a problem in the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
But like, can we just admit that like Patrick Mahomes is bad at this? Like, as far as a quick decision maker, especially, like he likes his time to look and progress through the field and have a big play. Like, he's obviously a terrific quarterback. He might be the best in the league. So I'm not going to take that away from him. But as far as, quick throws, quick passing game, helping out your offensive line, he struggles at that. That's probably his biggest weakness is he likes to stand back there for a long time. And he's very good at it being elusive, but it also cost them in that Bengals game too.
I don't know if I would say it's his biggest weakness because I feel like, you know, I'll take the positives that it brings with him, but I'll say it's certainly, it's going to have its negative plays.
Yes, and I mean the problem was he had 2 straight negative plays in that last game.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's kind of the issue. Yeah, but I think that Patrick Mahomes, I guess, I think he's someone who, I mean, although this year, I'm just kind of looking up his numbers a little bit. Like when he was under pressure, passer rating of 76.7, not under pressure, 110. So, passer rating under pressure, nothing spectacular. But again, that could be a little bit fluky as well. But I guess what I just say is, I'll take those negative plays if it comes with the positive plays.
Yep. Do you want to hear my bold prediction for next season already?
Okay, I like this. What's your bold prediction?
we will not see or one of or both, possibly both. Bill Belichick and Andy Reid will not be coaching after next season.
Wow, that is interesting. Which one are you leaning towards has the higher likelihood of retiring?
Reid.
Okay, well, why do you feel this way?
Like, I don't know. So if the Chiefs win a Super Bowl next year, like at that point, like what is Reid, accomplishing basically? What does he have left to prove? Like, wouldn't it be perfect for after all this situation with the Flores and all that kind of stuff if Reid decides to retire and hands the job off to Eric Bieniemy? Like, wouldn't that just be the kind of the perfect situation if they did manage to win a Super Bowl? I could see a situation like that happening. These guys are in 70s, so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Reid is done sooner than we think, and I also wouldn't be surprised if Belichick is at least done on the sideline sooner than we think. I could see him going to the front office role, but as far as a coach, I don't know how many years he's going to have left doing it.
Interesting. I was curious. I was looking up about the Patrick Mahomes stuff. When he holds onto the ball for 2.5 seconds or more this season, passer rating only 84, which was 18th out of the 27 eligible quarterbacks that played 50% of their snaps. So that's pretty significant. That's actually a lot lower than I would have thought.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. That Bengals game was just kind of ridiculous because he made a lot of really good plays, but he's also, I think hurting his team to an extent too. And also at not having a second receiver who can get open, I think that adds to it.
Yeah, I think all of that, I agree with you. I think all of that stuff factors in. Last year was better. He was at 92.2, which was 13th best. So yeah, interesting. Better when he gets rid of the ball quickly, according to the rest of the league. So fascinating stuff. Let's move on. Spent a long time on there. Another team in NFC West. Where are you going?
AFC West.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's go with the Raiders. They were the other team to make the playoffs from this division. For the Raiders, I said Henry Ruggs because, this team was in the red zone with a chance to tie the game against the team that made the Super Bowl. Like that's how close they were. Like this team, it's not out of the realm of possibility this Raiders team is in the Super Bowl right now with the way they were playing those last few weeks and into the playoffs. The biggest thing was their best receiver and biggest deep threat was gone. He wasn't on the team because of, some stupid decisions, obviously. We've gotten into it already. We don't need to get further into it. But his replacement, Deshaun Jackson, had one catch for 26 yards in that game. They had basically 2 plays over 20 yards in that game total in the passing game. I feel like that kind of adds up, not having that deep threat makes a huge difference to the offense.
Yeah, and they could have lacked. I think they kind of, lacked some receivers in general. I talked about this being a weakness early, heading into the year. It actually looked all right because Henry Ruggs did kind of develop. Brian Edwards was doing some nice things. You had, obviously Hunter Renfrow, who was very good, and Darren Waller, who had a big impact. But once you lost Ruggs and then also Waller's injury, they just didn't look the same. So
Ruggs was really good this year before,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. He was good. So I think you could also just talk about that. Another thing you could say is just the turmoil in general with the Raiders. The John Gruden thing. I think Damon Arnett, elite corner, Damon Arnett going obviously hurts a lot too.
Elite Chiefs corner, Damon Arnett.
Yes, right.
I mean, so if they win that game against the Bengals, you see a scenario where this team made the Super Bowl, right? Obviously they're not the favorites, but but I still think it's possible.
It's possible. I mean, they would have played Tennessee, right? Who, I mean, that would have been tough, but maybe Ryan Tannehill throws 3 interceptions against them, and they can win that, and then they have to beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs did blow them out twice in the regular season, so I don't know. Super chat, Raiders, Gruden, Ruggs, Arnett, red zone efficiency, defensive backs, defensive tackles, O-line consistency and discipline, and then also asking for McDaniels and Ziegler thoughts. We talked about the McDaniels stuff on the last week's show, but we appreciate the super chat. And I mean, I thought that the defensive backs, I didn't think was a mess, but yeah.
I mean, if you told me before the season you were getting that level of production out of Casey Hayward, I would have said that was a miracle. I would have said
they got 6th round pick Nate Hobbs.
Yeah, and Trayvon Moore turned out to be a pretty good pick, and so I
Hmm.
mean there is some good based on the expectations of this team, there is good defensive back play. Now, obviously, it's not the best in the league, but I thought it was pretty good still.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to okay. So two left in the West. Where are you going?
We'll go with I guess Chargers finished higher, so we'll go with the Chargers next. I just said this team's kind of a year away. I think that they still need to add some pieces, especially the defense, and the run defense is the biggest thing that needs to be addressed. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a nice core of guys here that you can build on. Joey Bosa, Derwin James, obviously Justin Herbert, good offensive line. Um, Austin Eckler's a nice piece. You need to add some pieces, I think, overall. You could probably use another pass catcher because I think Mike Williams is just a tier 3 receiver that we need to accept. I think you can add some pieces to the defensive line to help in the run game and in the linebacker room to help with the run game. And I think this team's going to be good going forward.
Yeah, I think maybe a good one here is like a slot receiver, right? I
Yeah.
mean, because you have like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen can win on the outside with pretty solid consistency, but they didn't really have someone who could go over the top too much. They thought Jared Cook would be that guy. It didn't really work out that way. So I think that might be something they need.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I still like the core of this team. They just need to add a few more pieces. But if they hit a home run this offseason, this is a team that's going to be a contender.
And to have like $1 billion in cap space too, so they should be all right. This
Yeah.
could be a Devontae Adams team.
That would be fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, how quickly would they rise? They're Super Bowl favorites if they get Devontae Adams.
I still think they need some pieces defensively. Like,
Well, sure. I don't mean just that, but like that, and also can add some, especially the run defense.
yeah, go draft a Jordan Davis. Go draft a couple other guys.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. All right. Denver Broncos. Probably hard to find a reason here because this team was so loaded across the board. But where are you going? I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I'm bashing the Broncos.
I facetiously put Patrick Surtain, but Patrick Surtain was good. Just kidding. Not addressing the quarterback issue is the big thing, though. And actually, I should say half addressing the quarterback issue because, yes, Teddy Bridgewater is an upgrade to everybody you had. But I think we know who Teddy Bridgewater is. We know what he can do. And he wasn't going to be an answer long-term at quarterback for an NFL franchise. And that hurt. Obviously, not addressing that issue is going to – this team's never going to be a contender without a quarterback. No team in the NFL is ever going to be a contender without at least a tier 3 quarterback. And they didn't have that play this season. So I think that adds to it.
Yeah. I think Denver, it seems like they're putting a lot of eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket.
They're trying so hard. I mean, it's so obvious too, right?
Yeah.
Like they just they're dying for this.
Should they I don't know, rename their team like the Denver Joe Rogans or something?
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Something.
Yeah, I'm for it. They got to figure something out to get him there.
Yeah, maybe when you have a meeting with him, just happen to have elk meat out on the table or something.
I mean, the easiest thing to do would just be show him constant Tim Patrick highlights. He'd sign on the spot. He'd be all before him.
That's exactly right. That's what they need to do. Yeah, I had a feeling your pick here wasn't going to be Tim Patrick was the reason they didn't go to the Super Bowl.
No, not at all. I love Tim Patrick.
Yes, aware of your love for Tim Patrick. Yeah, Broncos are interesting. We'll see what they do have a pretty good roster outside of quarterback. So I know everyone says quarterback away. Sometimes easier said than done. Usually easier said than done. But
there's like 10 teams quarterback away now.
Right. There's also kind of been, I feel like the Broncos have been a quarterback away ever since Peyton Manning retired.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the year they won the Super Bowl, they felt a quarterback away with Peyton Manning. So,
yeah, sure.
We'll see. They got to address that.
Yeah. All right. Final division, everyone's favorite division, AFC South. Where are you going first?
Let's go with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee, there's a few things. I didn't want to put injuries, so I didn't put injuries. I said Julio Jones taking a step back.
Interesting.
Because I think he had a pretty good playoff game, but it's just very clear to me that this wasn't Julio Jones anymore. And I think Julio Jones, obviously prime Julio Jones on this team makes a huge difference when AJ Brown and Derrick Henry are injured. It makes a huge difference in that playoff game too. The lack of positioning with that guy, and I was okay with them letting Corey Davis go because I didn't think Corey Davis was that good. And it felt like an easy upgrade getting Julio Jones, but he wasn't really that much of an upgrade. And I think that was the biggest thing. He wasn't really an upgrade at all, actually. And not having that upgrade at the number 2 wide receiver spot, putting that money into the Julio Jones basket and it not working out, I think that hurt.
Yeah, I think you could also just argue like Ryan Tannehill had a bad day in the playoffs. Like, I mean, I know it's kind of like simplistic, but like, I mean, kind of if Ryan Tannehill doesn't do that, like, there's a very real chance they are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
All right, where are you going next?
Let's see, Indianapolis, I guess.
Okay.
I put losing to Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it really like this is another team where it's like, so if this team's in the playoffs, is it crazy to think this team could have made the Super Bowl based on the way they were playing at the end of the season, the way that they could run the ball, the way that they were starting to cover really well at the end of the season? Obviously, you could easily also say Carson Wentz, but I thought Wentz for a large portions of the year was pretty good, even though he was bad at the end of the year. I thought that losing that game obviously changed the entire course of the team because everyone was picking them as a sleeper before that, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, I think they're another one of these things. I mean, people have rumored Aaron Rodgers to the Colts because, obviously his relationship with Pat McAfee. I think that would be interesting. I don't know how the cap would work there. I haven't looked. I think Colts typically have money, though. So, although they typically don't spend it. So that's another factor. But, yeah, I think I'd probably go Carson Wentz here. I think that he was too inconsistent at times. And, again, you can't have a tier 4 quarterback win you a Super Bowl. Like, that's just not going to happen. Okay, it could happen, but it's very, very hard to do.
Yeah, and they were close to doing it, crazy enough. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a part. We could say wide receiver also for this team, but I think the theme of this is that like 25 teams could say wide receivers would help.
Sure.
So I think there's a few things you could say, but yeah, Wentz obviously is the big factor going forward, and can't lose to Jacksonville.
Yeah. All right. 2 teams left, 2 very talented teams that you probably had to really think about left.
All right, we'll go with the Houston Texans. I put Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun Watson,
good point.
I don't know how good they would be with him, but it would have been a lot better than what it was without him. Davis Mills turned out to be a pretty good pick. I don't know how good Davis Mills is going to be going forward. I don't think he's as good as Deshaun Watson. Hot take. And obviously Deshaun Watson had all this stuff going on behind him, but I mean, he was eligible to play this entire season. The Texans didn't suspend him at all, from what I remember. It was basically just he wanted a trade. They said no, and they said they weren't going to play him with this whole trade request. And so he basically sat out. And not having him there, I think, made a huge difference to this team.
Yeah, this is not a good football team.
No, it is not. I mean, it needs a lot of talent too, but they're a lot closer if they have a tier 1 quarterback.
Sure, that makes things a lot easier. Kyle, I just had a thought about what my next take is going to be. I have a great idea for a future take, okay? And it's not even about any specific team. At a certain point, heading into the next year, some team is going to be everyone's pick to be the worst team in football and to maybe go 0-17. And whatever it is, my take is going to be they won't be the worst team in football. Because I feel like so rarely do we actually nail the worst team in football preseason.
That's probably fair. I think the thing is that there's a lot more candidates than people think.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's like, the Houston Texans surprised everybody by winning 4 games. Like that's like all they have to do. Like you're probably going to end up just winning a couple of extra random games and not being the worst team.
Yeah, it's hard to go winless. I think people, take it for granted. Do you think it's harder to go winless or undefeated?
That's an interesting question. Well, I guess, going winless has happened more. So probably, I guess, think about it that way.
What does it happen? 3 times?
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah, well, at least 3-2.
I guess, if in the 16 season, it would be 2-1. So I guess it's not that much more. That's fascinating. I would probably say, I think going winless is easier to do because I think there's a chance that team could be winless and also be like, yeah, whatever. I don't think there's a chance. Like the team that's trying to go undefeated, the opposing teams are going to try to beat them like more. I think.
Yeah,
that's my weird logic behind it.
That's fair. So, I'm done on the Texans. You want to move on?
Yes, please. Let's move on to the more exciting team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why did they not win the Super Bowl why are they not in the Super Bowl in 2022?
I said the front office. The front office was the huge problem with this team. The front office wanted to be bad. They sold off any decent part for literally nothing. We talked extensively about the Ronnie Harrison trade with this team. Not that Ronnie Harrison's like an all-pro or anything, but he's significantly better than anything on the Jaguars. Listen, I don't want to be revisionist because I think there was people who actually thought the Urban Meyer hiring was interesting. Like, I don't think anyone jumped to say, okay, this sucked.
All right.
But at the same time, people who were speculating on the hire and making those decisions weren't in on the interview process, obviously. The Jaguars are in on the interview process. They have to assess how this human being could coach other human beings. And it was a miss. It was a miss. So I go completely with the front office. I think, we knew who Urban Meyer was, and it didn't succeed. And they interviewed him multiple times and decided this was their guy. I think that the front office has completely botched this franchise. I think it set it back multiple years. I still think it's got a long way to go, and hopefully Trevor Lawrence doesn't, become a bust because of this front office.
There was so much wrong. I think that's why it's fair to say, because you're right. Urban Meyer was, that did not work out. He didn't even make it through to his first season. The receiving core, what they put some assets into, ended up being a complete mess. We talked about how Laquan Treadwell was the number one receiver towards the end of the year. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like Jamal Agnew was being before he got injured, was a legitimate receiving option at one point. Like what are we doing here? Not that I dislike him or anything, but how clearly things are going wrong if the guy you brought on to be a good special teamer is the guy who is now being a significant part of your offense, unless it's because he's having a breakout year. The offensive line wasn't good. I think that I don't know. Some of the young defensive backs showed some flashes, so at least you have that. But even this defensive line, which we thought was going to be fantastic, Josh Allen's still really good. But other than that, Kayvon Chason is kind of starting to look more and more like a bust. So there were this was a team that had very little expectations, and they still ended up missing on all those expectations. This was a tough year for Jacksonville.
Yeah, they need a lot of pieces. I like some of the guys they have. As far as young talent, but it's an organizational problem that I think needs to change.
Yeah. And Lawrence was disappointing. Lawrence was not what we wanted to see from him.
Until literally a half of the last game of the year, he was not very good.
Yeah. And Zachary Stewart bringing up Tebow. Yeah. This team intentionally hired Tebow to be a tight end.
Yeah. They drafted a running back in the first round when you had maybe one of the best running backs in the AFC last year starting, after it was his first year last year, and you try to replace him after 1 year.
Yeah, just wild stuff. Jaguars got some work to do, back-to-back first overall picks, but hey, in a weird sort of way, kind of a nice situation, right? You get, a potential quarterback, another first overall pick. You got stuff to build around at least.
Yeah. I'm sure people would love this opportunity, but I do think that the front office is a problem.
Yeah, we'll see if maybe Leftwich or whoever ends up getting it. Should be fascinating. All right, Kyle, that's all 30 teams.
We did it.
Two
teams left.
Yes, 2 teams left. Only one will win it all. It's kind of a weird year, right? Where I do feel like part of why this year has been so wild is I don't think we've had the true front runner team, and even maybe the team was Green Bay, who just imploded on themselves.
Well, I think even we were saying from the beginning of the year, who's the best team this season? I don't think we knew, and I think we finally settled on the Packers. I settled on the Packers, but at the same time, nobody wanted to pick the Packers, and I wonder if it's I wonder if it's people were going off of previous season's playoff failures as why, but at the same time, we didn't really know who was the best team. Every team looked unconvincing. Every team had a bad loss, basically.
Yeah. Fun stuff. Wild year. So again, if you missed the beginning of this show, if you're watching live, what we've talked about this Sunday at, what time are we doing it Sunday? Are we still doing it midnight, or did we say we're going to move it up?
11, right?
11. Okay. Yeah. So at 11 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday, we will be doing a draft of who we think is most likely to win Super Bowl MVP. Then on Wednesday, we will do our preview show where I will pick who I believe is going to win the Super Bowl. And that's all that matters, Kyle. If I get it right, I win a championship. If I get it wrong, you win the championship. It's balls in my court.
Balls in your court. Sources are saying that there's a good chance Joe Burrow goes in the top 2 of our Super Bowl MVP draft. What do you think about that?
That's pretty well. So you think you're thinking Matt Gay 1 and then Joe Burrow 2.
Well, that's a little disrespectful to Evan McPherson, the best kicker of all time.
You're right. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I think kickers probably. Again, I kind of like this because we're doing 20. It's a draft of 20 players. So we did it last year where it's like we're getting like special teamers in there at certain points. It's just kind of a fun exercise.
Yeah. The people are going to think it's ridiculous by pick 20, but we'll have fun.
Yeah, and after the Pro Bowl, maybe we'll have something to talk about at the Pro Bowl. I don't know. It's possible. Probably not. Yeah, you're right. But there'll be some news that we'll have to talk about then too as well. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, there's the audio version anywhere you get your podcast. Check out the audio only file. Kyle, before we go, let them know where they can find us on Twitter.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Grondin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Yes. Again, thank you to everybody for watching or listening on the audio only version. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head
out? Ready for Super Bowl Sunday. Getting close, so should be a good time. Not looking forward to the Pro Bowl. Go Washington Football Commanders.
So you hate the Pro Bowl?
I'm against it. I think it's dumb.
Really? Like, see, I'm firmly in the camp of I think the Pro Bowl is fun. I don't think it's too much. I think it's watching a practice with the best players in the world. And I think if you accept it as that's what it is, it can be entertaining.
Listen, I love my quarterback, but Mac fucking Jones is in the Pro Bowl. Like,
sure.
What is this game? Like, Mitch Trubisky and Mac Jones are Pro Bowlers right now. I love Mac Jones, and I hope he makes many more Pro Bowls, actually deserving them. But he wasn't a Pro Bowler this season. Like, why even have the game at that point?
Yeah. The chat said the Pro Bowl skills competitions are fun. That's true. Also, PSA, those are tomorrow, just so everyone knows. I think people always don't realize it because it's on a weird time on a Thursday. But the skills challenge tomorrow. Kyle, you're going to watch that?
Well, I might have to. Hopefully I have power. Speaking of that, anybody in the DFW area, hope you're staying safe. Got snowstorms coming through. So I'll be home tomorrow. So I will probably watch it.
Okay. Well, make sure you follow Kyle on Twitter to find out all of his Pro Bowl skills challenge stuff. But yeah, it should be interesting. All right. Everyone, thanks again. We do appreciate it. And of course, until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.